Secrets. Comfort Cuddles. Rainbow Dash sighed, stuffing her face into a pillow and groaning into it loudly. Her muzzle scrunched up and her eyes watered, tears threatening to escape from her eyes. She wiped them away quickly, sniffling. The truth was, she was doubting herself, doubting her abilities. The Wonderbolts had become such a chore recently. She had to memorize a 15-minute-long flight pattern while staying in position. Spitfire had stressed that it was vitally important to get everything perfect as there was no room for mistakes. It had really been getting to her recently, and she had barely any time on her hooves, only getting a few hours of sleep per day with the stress of revising her flight pattern. What if she forgot everything and embarrassed herself? What if every pony made fun of her? What if... The sound of hooves clopping against the door interrupted her train of thought, followed by a voice. Hey, Rainbow, can I come in? She mumbled something that sounded more like a grunt than anything else, but Twilight trotted in anyway, eyeing her suspiciously, though. She asked the same question as she had asked her for the few past weeks. Rainbow, she said, are you alright? She simply nodded in response, smiling a fake smile before averting her gaze. There were a few minutes of silence, and Twilight shook her head. No, she said sternly. You're not. Rainbow looked up in surprise, nodding her head. Yes, she insisted. I am. Twilight, despite her knowing Dash wasn't much of a hugger, trotted slowly towards her and wrapped her hooves around her. They stayed for a few moments before Twilight nuzzled into her neck in an attempt to comfort her. Dash, for the record, you look horrible, Twilight giggled. For the first time in a few weeks, Dash found herself giggling at her friend's silly remark, and without even thinking, rested her head on top of Twilight's, accepting the hug. They were now wrapped around each other, Twilight's head in the crook of Dash's neck as they both closed their eyes, enjoying the moment together. Twilight let out an admittedly adorable giggle. Dash, she teased playfully. I never knew you had this side of you. It's really cute. Rainbow pulled away slowly, her muzzle glowing a dim red. She didn't say anything. Instead, her eyes watered again and she threw herself back into Twilight's loving embrace. The Pegasus was now a sniffling, crying mess in Twilight's hooves. All of the emotion, the stress, the doubts, leaving her body as she quietly sobbed into her. Twilight stroked her mane gently, nuzzling her gently and stroking her back with the other hoof. She hushed her, closing her eyes and concentrating on providing comfort to her friend. They stayed there for what seems like hours. Rainbow slowly coming down from her fit of sobs now and simply nuzzling into Twilight's neck. Twilight slowly pulled away, giving her cheek a small little nuzzle. Rainbow looked downwards, averting her gaze in an attempt to hide her bright red muzzle. She had never cried of anyone before. Dash, Twilight insisted. Please, tell me what's wrong. It's clearly affecting you. Her voice trailed off, and she gazed into the Pegasus's deep magenta eyes, pleading. She took a deep, slow breath. Okay, she murmured, but can we, Twilight tilted her head to the side, giving a questioning look. Rainbow blushed furiously, staring up at her, forcing the words out. Cuddle? Twilight was surprised to say the least. She never took Rainbow as a snuggly type of pony, but she was definitely not complaining. It was, she concluded, actually quite adorable. Aww, she cooed. Of course we can, Dashy. Twilight sat down beside her friend, and almost immediately the Pegasus began to nuzzle into her neck. Twilight giggled, placing a hoof around her and resting her head on top of hers. She rubbed back gently, and Rainbow just began. It just... The Wonderbolts had become such a chore lately. We're expected to memorize an entire flight pattern in a few weeks, and Spitfire keeps talking about how there's no room for mistakes. And I'm meant to attend Wonderbolts events, which is cool and all, but they go on for hours at a time, which is time I could have spending practicing my flying patterns. And that's not even the worst bit. I'm getting barely any sleep, and I think... Rainbow felt a hoof on her lips. There was a few moments of silence until Twilight began talking. Dash, you can do this. You're the most determined, kind, skillful, fastest pony I know. And if anyone can do this, it's you. You've faced challenges in the past, right? We've all overcome them. Together, just take it one step at a time. Don't try to cram everything in. Here, I'll help you with your flight pattern, but first, you need some sleep. Rainbow opened her mouth to talk, but Twilight hushed her again. Sleep? Now, she demanded playfully, nuzzling her. Twilight got up to walk out, but a hoof grabbed her on the fur. She turned around, being met with beautiful magenta eyes. Can you... can you sleep with me? Twilight flushed, nodding almost too willingly. Happily. Twilight climbed onto the bed beside Dash, wasting no time in wrapping her hooves around her and gently stroking her sides. Because they are similar size, Twilight was able to gently rest her chin on her shoulder. The alicorn rubbed her stomach gently and sighed in contentment. You know, you're really adorable like this, right? The Pegasus flushed, waiting a few seconds before responding. I am? Of course you are. Rainbow backed further into Twilight's stomach. The alicorn giggled in response. I love you. The words had come out without her even realizing it. Rainbow felt Twilight's tense almost immediately, and Dash began to stammer uncontrollably. No, I mean, like, as a friend, you know, like... Twilight sat up and turned around to face Dash. She gave her a look that she didn't recognize before. The Pegasus covered her face with the covers, blushing furiously, convincing herself that Twilight wasn't there. She felt Twilight leaning towards her, which caused her to squirm uncomfortably. Had she even meant it, or did she just say it in the moment? She began to feel different around Twilight recently. She'd get butterflies whenever they'd hugged, and she found a sudden fascination for her eyes. Sometimes she'd... Dash? Dash? Hello? She jumped suddenly, being snapped out of her train of thought by the feeling of a hoof poking her through the covers. Twilight slowly pulled the covers off her face, revealing a blushing Pegasus. Do you... really? Blushing, Rainbow reflected on the question. She had felt different around Twilight recently. Whenever they'd hugged, it was different to her. At least, it was like she didn't ever want to let go. Like, if she did let go, she'd just lose her. But surely that was just all of them becoming closer friends, right? I don't know, was her honest response. Twilight leaned towards her. For a moment, Rainbow was confused, but suddenly it all came together as they felt their muscles connect. Dash tensed up for a few seconds before, mainly out of pure instinct, she kissed back. After what seemed like hours, Twilight pulled away, panting softly. Yes, Dash said. I love you, Twilight. Twilight smiled, giggling. Oh, I love you too, you big softy.